Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's March 10th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and we're going to do something a little different today. The last 2 days have been crazier than ever. I think yesterday was an historic drop, and you can see. And of course, I wasn't here yesterday. I took the day off, but we definitely had an historic drop yesterday, and we rallied during the overnight, and then dropped again only to see us fill the gap on the daily chart and rally back up to about where we were early this morning, or actually early in the overnight this morning. So just to explain that, first thing I want to do is I want to explain what I'm always talking about the gap on the daily chart. Um, this part, this is where the market opens, or where it's where it opened actually on. It normally opens at 3:30 every afternoon, my time, but on Sundays it opens at 5:30 that night, and I think it's 5 or 5:30 or something. I don't ever even look at it anymore. You don't want to trade this stuff for the most part, but um, this is where it opened. We just assumed for the overnight session yesterday, and this is where the regular 8:30 session um, opens, where it turns white right there. And so, even though you've got trading here on the 24-hour chart, on the regular session, it's not open during the overnight. So there's a gap between where it opens here at 8:30 and where it closed here Friday. And so that's what I'm talking about. So you could just forget that part in the blue is there in the regular daily session. If you came over here, that's where the market would be opening right there, and then it would have been closing right here Friday. So there's a or actually yesterday. So there's a gap in there. And generally, the market does not like charts, don't like gaps. And you can see we traded down. We actually went a little lower than that, but we filled that gap and then finally found some support, went sideways for a little bit, and then rocketed on back up to where we were previously uh, to test those overnight highs up here. So I hope that makes sense. So basically, oops, I don't know where that came from. I think right there. So basically, we traded. We closed here yesterday and we opened here this morning. So prices came down, filled that gap, and then reversed. And you'll see that happen quite often. And it'll be gaps to the upside. Um, and the market will trade up and fill that gap. And sometimes it'll keep going, and sometimes it'll turn and come back. And we could have kept going lower today, but the market was way overdone. It just, for us to even trade at 2,700 is just really out of the ordinary. Um, for it to fall, I mean, it was just no time at all. We were knocking at the door. I mean, just a week ago, maybe we were knocking at the door at 3,400, and yesterday we traded below 27. So 700 points in the ES in a week or so. That's a lot of points and a lot of movement. So, um, but really, to try to do a chart lesson and go through all the trades with this much volatility, it was already taking me 30 minutes to just kind of blow through the trades, and so it'd probably take me 45 minutes to an hour to really give it a good, the last couple of days worth, to give it, really make it worth our while. So I'm not going to go through the trades. If you've got a trade that's just driving you nuts and you want to ask me about it, feel free to send me an email and put a picture of it in there. And but I do ask you to take a snapshot of your chart. Um, if you send me an email and say ask about the something that happened at this time on the chart, I'm not going to go dig a chart out and try to figure out where you're talking about. It's too difficult. So if you do have a question about a trade or a chart, always send me a picture and point out exactly where. Let's say if you wanted to ask me about this spot right here on the chart, well, which was right there is what we were talking about. Get out where it's big enough to see and send me a chart, and make sure you put something on there that says, hey, I'm talking about this point right here. And then I can glance at the chart, look exactly, and it takes 2 seconds to answer your question. But when you get a lot, 25 to 50 questions a day and you got to go look every one up on the chart, I just don't have time to do that. So hopefully you understand. Most of you are pretty good about that, and you kind of know my rule at this point that if you want me to answer a question, you better send a chart, and please make it very clear where you're talking about on the chart, because I'll even get people to send me a chart and they'll say on that second entry, and they don't point it out right here, and so um, I don't, then I'm still trying to figure out where on the chart they're talking about. So make sure you point it out real clearly and that there's a clear picture of it. And the more of the charts you can send me, that helps, because sometimes they'll ask me if that was a good second entry, but all I see is something like that right there, and I can't see any of the context, and I can't figure out where it's at on my chart. And let me back on out here. I mean, if you're looking at it like that, that looks like a great failed second entry short that you might go long on. But when you back out in the big picture and you see it's all downhill, no, you don't want to be going long right there. So make sure you send me enough of your chart that I can ascertain the context if you can too. So you might even put 2 pictures on there like I've had to do the last couple of days. But let me back out again here, and I'm just going to kind of show you the big picture. In the big picture, this is a range, but I mean, it's a 200 point range. I mean, it's 2,700. It's actually below 2,700 here, and we're almost to 29 right here. That's almost a 200 point range. So even though this is a bigger picture trading range, you can't trade this like a range, because you don't get any, you don't have consistent support down here that we're bouncing off over and over, and you don't have consistent resistance up here that you're turning down off of over and over. So, I mean, you could make some of the trades right in here, and you might even make a long or two. I don't think you even want to dare make a long there at that point. So, but you might make a couple shorts up here by the time we'll look at it. We'll look at it a little closer in a minute. But really, when you're trending up this strongly, you just want to go long, and when you're trending down this strongly, you just pretty much want to go short. Now, there's a few places in here where the trend was large enough that you might have traded it. Like here, you probably would have traded that up, and you definitely could have traded that sideways right there. And even though the bigger trend was up here, there's a spike up in 2 channels, that's a clear trend working down, and that's a big trend. So even though it's really, you would be counter trend in the big picture, when it's this volatile and this crazy, you can trade that trend. It's just because it's too big. I mean, it's, you don't want to sit here and miss a lot of good trades waiting on this to come. And it does bounce right there, but it never really comes back again. And then we're headed lower. So, and in the end, I don't think I had this quite steep enough. I think this was steeper here. And it didn't really matter, because this trend didn't really stay in play anyway. We just reversed to fill that gap. So it makes it a little bit, really to trade this, you've got to narrow down into the smaller. It helps to know the bigger picture, but you got to narrow down into these, and you can see all these smaller trends and stuff. And there's the one I was just talking about. And then the sideways one, then we're down again, then we're up, and then we're down. And so now this one, I would not trade that long. I mean, at this level, this thing is down so hard. But once we started going higher here, by all means, you probably want to trade these trends longer. And then we're down again, then up again. I mean, it's just, prices are just all over the place. And most of you, if you're trading live, you probably already know this, but I know that our group brokerage has raised our margin rates, and I'm sure most of the brokers have. Some of them might have raised them more than others, so that changes things. And they can change those margins at any time, so you might actually get some margin calls in the middle of the trading day like this. So it's really getting, I guess where I'm going with this is that if you're not a really seasoned trader, and as good as this is, and you hate to tell somebody don't take advantage of this kind of volatility and these kind of long moves, because you can catch a runner or two and just make, really make bank on this thing right now. So, and I hate to tell anybody to stay away from that, but if you're not a seasoned trader, you're probably going to lose your bank is what you're probably going to do. So I almost recommend that if you're just an average guy still learning, or even if you're just starting to get semi-profitable or whatever, you may stay out of this. Either take the week off or take some time off, or just sim trade it. I mean, because if you can sim trade this and trade it and do it, and do well, then, if you can trade this kind of volatility and do well, it'll feel really easy when it goes back to being slow and methodical again, which it will at some point. So keep that in mind. But if you're not a seasoned trader, you might be better off just stay out of this thing. And that's take that as my advice, because you slip up in this market and you never know when they're going to halt trading. Yesterday trading got halted at one point, and you don't want something like that to happen to you and get stuck in a trade and then it closed and then gap open. That can happen. It doesn't happen very much in the equities, but it'll happen a lot in some of the other futures. But it might could happen in the equities right now, because it's just not a normal market. And I mean, I've seen volatility before, but I don't ever remember, while I've been trading the last 20 years or so, I don't remember it ever being like this. Maybe it was and I don't remember it, or maybe I missed a trading day, but honestly, I don't remember it ever being this volatile. And we've had some volatility in the past, in the recent past too, but I just don't ever remember it being like this. So, um, take that advice for however you will, but again, I'd be careful trading this live, uh, unless you're a seasoned trader. And even then, you could still, something crazy could happen and they could halt trading and it could gap to another point and you could get wiped out. And there's not a thing you can do, because once they halt that trading, you're stuck. You can't get out until the market trades again. And if it suddenly gaps on you and trades at some crazy price level, you may be wiped out, and you may actually owe more money than you lost. And that's one of the things about, that's one of the things you usually don't worry about in day trading. That's one of the beauties of day trading, is that you don't have crazy things that happen to you when you're holding overnight. You don't have those problems for the most part, but this volatility brings all that into back into the day trading arena too. So it does, the things that normally we're immune to in the overnight trading can suddenly affect us in our day trading as well. So anyway, I'm just going to kind of back out here again. Notice the gap up, the spike in channel. And this thing, it could have been a little steeper here, more like this. It still plays out pretty much the same. I've been having some problems with my copy and paste here today. There we go. But it may have been more like that right there, with a little overshoot, and that would have explained it reversing. But in this market, it could reverse and do anything it wants, and maybe it's even a little steeper than that. Again, it doesn't really matter here, because you're really going to play this thing. So maybe it was even more like so. So that's a possibility. But anyway, just to make my point, or get to the point I was trying to make, is you're really going to narrow this thing down into much tighter channels and trends. These things look like they're micro at this level, but they're really not. This is not a micro trend right here. And as you back out, you can see that's not a micro trend. It looks like one from at the higher level, but this thing traded from we were up here at 28, close to 28.80, and this trades all the way down to 28.20. That's a 60-point move. I mean, I've seen days where we'd be happy to have 60-point moves, and we got one here within. This was around. I'd call this around 6 o'clock. And so by 7:30 or so an hour and a half, we've moved 60 points. So this is not a micro trend. It looks like a micro trend on the big picture of what we've been trading or what we're seeing here, but in the, for all intents and purposes, it's not a micro trend. So then we went sideways again. It looks really tight, and this is pretty tight. You'd need to be careful trading this. Then we had a little trend working down here, breaking a low. Then we got a trend working up here. We actually had a little close outside here, a little overshoot, then a little close, but we still had a break and a couple of legs. We didn't quite make a new high, and then we turned down again. This one's very tight, and this is another spiking channel down. This thing spikes down and goes into this channel. We had a break here and then down again, and I would measure this right here and assume that maybe this is the center of the pattern and look for a measured move. And you can see we almost had a perfect measured move, bottomed out. It might have went a few ticks further, and then we're going in the other direction. Same thing here. We got another tight trend coming down. We actually had an overshoot, then a break, and then two legs down. You can see there's a leg and then another leg. If you measure those, they're probably pretty close. Call that one there. We didn't quite get a measured move on that one, you can see. And then we reversed here. And then you got one working up, one working down, one working up. And you could trade this both ways, even though this has a slight up, or this is an upward bias going on by this point. But these moves down are just so big. Then you got a two-tiered one right here. Same thing here. This probably has two tiers. I didn't draw it on here. I don't know what's going on with my paste and copy. It's just giving me some troubles today. Try it one more time. Yep, I don't know, but there's going to be a midline in there. If you can see that if I move it up, why this thing is not. See if I can get it that way. There we go. You can see it. There it is. And again, that looks like a little micro trend, but that's a pretty big trend. I mean, even that trend right there is 2750 something all the way to 2800 basically. So almost 50 points. And then same thing back down. And we had another micro trend. Or it looks like a micro trend, I guess I should say, and that took us almost into the 2 o'clock hour. A little two-legged correction right there. So by all means, measure this move, and then see if you get a measured move from here. And look at there, we got almost a perfect measured move. Maybe not quite there. Well, that's a perfect to the tick measured move. Look at it. So these measured moves, by all means, use them because they're important and they've helped you find these trends. So another thing I meant to show you at the very beginning, notice that we made a higher low here than here. So I would measure this leg, and when we started going higher from here, look for a possible measured move. We didn't quite get it. We once we got back up to this resistance, it tended to hold. But you can see, as we started going higher, that could have kept you in the market all the way almost to the close. There's actually a nice little sell-off right here, even though that looks very minor. Again, when you back out, there's 19 bars in there in 13 minutes, and I guess that's a 20. I think that means that's a 24 and a quarter point drop right there. Let's just see what that is. 2860. Yeah, that's about right. So that's what that tells you. I don't use that tool very often, but that's pretty handy for telling you. Actually 25 and a quarter. It's actually 17 bars, 13 minutes. That's hard to argue with. I'm just curious now if we back out here, what this whole move up here was. It's 182 and a half points in 11 hours overnight, 159 bars. And then we went down. I don't think that's telling us the same thing. Let's just start over there. And then we dropped 151 and 3/4 points in 4 hours. I'm a little less than 5 hours with 344 bars. I'm almost hard to believe I'm saying these numbers. If you'd have told me I'd be reading off numbers like that, and it rose 156 and a quarter points in 4 hours and 21 minutes with 486 bars. Literally, if you'd have told me I was going to be quoting those kind of numbers even 3 weeks ago, I'd have laughed at you. I'd said, not maybe one day here out of the blue, but not 2 days in a row. But hey, anything can and will happen in this market. So, and I don't think we're done yet. It'd be nice to know we were done to the downside, but I wouldn't hold my breath. It was kind of interesting that that's about half the move from yesterday. So before they opened this morning, we were up almost 800 points. Actually, I'm thinking about the Dow. We were up over what I read it a minute ago. A little bit before 8 o'clock this morning, we were up almost 200 points, 183 points. And then, like I said, in no time flat, we took it all back. Oops. I think I messed that up. Oh, within no time flat, we took 153 of it back. 4 hours, less than 5 hours, we took that much of it back. So this is a crazy market. Again, I just didn't feel like I was going to be able to do it justice to go through all these trades. And again, just to reiterate, if you're not a seasoned trader, don't feel like you're I guess I would say don't be intimidated if you feel like you shouldn't be trading this. Don't let your concern that, hey, I should trade this, because this is not a normal market. This is not an easy market to trade. Obviously, if you get it right, you can get some huge moves, and I meant to show you a few of those moves, but there's runners all over the place on here. You catch a runner here. If you can catch one of these early ones, there's a couple of times I've traded and taken one trade and been done before 8 o'clock. Several of these moves down. 7 o'clock doesn't come till right in here somewhere, I think, on this drop. But if you catch one of these drops, I mean, you're done. One trade and you get a runner that's probably can make you more points than 20 or 30 trades. And, and you're done in 15 minutes. I mean, that's possible. And if you just, even if you're um, very picky, you catch one of these, you can still be done but by 10 o'clock in the morning and catch a runner or two. And that was the other thing I wanted to read. One more. I'm going to pause this 1 minute and I'm going to read another um, email that somebody sent me last week. I meant to. Okay, I thought I would read this to you because this shows you the kind of dedication it takes. I mean, this gentleman probably could have given up 100 times, but he hung in there. And so I wanted to read his note. It just says, good afternoon, Mac. I wanted to drop you a note and thank you. You know, I've been with you for several years learning price action. You've always taken the time to answer any and all of my questions. You have heard me say several times, I'm almost there. And he has. He's told me several times he's almost there. And not to get off on a tangent in the middle of his email, but that's one thing most of you have been around a while have heard me say. You will think you've made it a couple times, and you won't have made it. You'll be close. And if you're getting a break even, you're getting close. You're close enough to taste it, but it doesn't mean you're there yet. Uh, but once you really, really do make it, you'll know, and you'll remember me saying this, and you'll say, yeah, now I understand what Mac meant by I thought I'd made it a few times, but when you really get there, you'll know it. But you'll think you were there a few times before you're there. But anyway, to continue on, he said, I'm almost there. At this stage of my trading, I can honestly say that I have turned the corner. I've learned to sit on my hands when necessary, very important piece, and to see price action in its proper context. This is something I never thought possible a couple years ago. After 7 years of study, and that's dedication, my friends, 7 years of study. Most people would have given up after 7 weeks. They think they should be making money, and they're already trading live, and they've blown their account, and they're gone. And those are the donators that the market needs. I mean, without those donators, there's nobody to keep throwing money at it. So if everybody's smart enough to win, then you have no market. You got to have donators. But don't, listen to me, don't be a donator. But anyway, after 7 years of study and never giving up, I've had one loser in the last 28 trades. You know, I used to say that and people would laugh at me, call me a liar, and tell me I was crazy, that it can't be done, it's impossible. But let me read that to you again. After 7 years of study and never giving up, I've had one loser in the last 28 trades. It took him 7 years, but he did it. And you know, he might have 3 or 4 losers in a row now. But the thing he can tell himself is that he knows the odds now. He can do 1 in 28. If he has 3 in a row, he's probably going to have another 28 or 30 or 35 winners in a row. But to continue on, my days are now ending positive, and when I have a losing trade, I don't freak out, for I know that I will make it up on the next trade. Same thing I was just telling you. Thanks for always being there, and puts his name there. And he puts down here at the bottom, P.S. I am averaging 5 to 7 winning scalps a day. I see a new future. That's great. I've gotten to know this guy really well. He's a great guy. Me and him have something in common. We're fishermen. I like to fish. He likes to fish. He sends me pictures of his fish and so forth. And I always enjoy that part of what we do here, of getting to know people. I mean, I got friends all over the world that I've never met that feel like, they feel like best friends to me, because I've been, we've been around each other so long, we've talked for so long, and I enjoy that. And that's one of the positives that's come out of this for me, is that having some great friends around the world through trading that I never would have met otherwise, and some of them I've never met anyway. But anyway, I've almost done 30 minutes worth here, but I wanted to do something a little different and talk about some stuff. And I may do a couple more videos through the rest of the week. Today's already Tuesday. We got 2 more days. I might even take off. Who knows? They may shut the markets down. I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't close them or something for a week or something. If it continues to do something crazy, to the downside, I could see them closing the markets. I mean, don't run out and say Mac says we're closing the markets, because I don't know that, but it just wouldn't surprise me. Nothing would surprise me right now. So don't let anything shock you or surprise you. Don't be afraid to take some time off to get away from it. don't be afraid to just sit here and sim trade it. I mean, even if you're already a profitable trader and you've been doing well, don't give it all back in this market by somehow getting screwed up, because something crazy can actually happen right now. So, again, I may take some more time off, but at the very least, I may just come in and go over some of the basics on these chart lessons the next couple of days. Just kind of talk about some of the basics of similar stuff to what I talked about today. Maybe show you how I draw my trend lines again and things like that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. This is 30 minutes worth, and um, we'll see what happens. But trade safely, be wise, don't do anything dumb. Don't be afraid not to trade. Don't be afraid to trade if you're a good trader, because there's some great opportunities. And you know, in 2 or 3 trades in the last couple of weeks, I probably made more money than I'd make in 2 or 3 weeks in a normal market. So there's great opportunity as well, but don't be afraid to step away from it. So don't feel like you got to trade this, because there's a lot of people losing a lot of money. Most of the people losing money now are long-term investors. And I mean, I have a 401k from back in my when I was employed in the corporate world, and man, yeah, in that side of it, I hate to see the market tank, but as a day trader, I don't care which way it goes. But I prefer to see it go up, because I know there's a lot of people that's lives depend on their 401k. Most companies don't have retirements anymore. They make us throw it all in these 401ks and things. And if they do badly, then our retirement does badly. And I got one of those too, so I know firsthand. And I hate to see it erode away, especially, people that are getting in, there's a lot of people getting towards retirement, and now something crazy happens in the market and it crashes and they lose everything they got and don't have time to make it back. So anyway, I feel like I'm beating around the bush here. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Again, we might do something a little different rather than go through the trades. When the market gets back to normal or even semi-normal, I'll probably start going through the trades again. But I'm going to do a few things different until then. But I'm going to wrap it up. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.